So the Navy and the University of Maryland are both large, complex organizations. Although UMD is itself a large entity, the UAS test site is a small satellite office within the UMD organizational structure. Therefore, it has many similarities to a small startup in some ways compared to a large university organizational environment. In addition, each organization has different procedures and objectives. For example, the Navy is primarily focused on defense and national security, but they also prioritize research. UMD focuses on research, but also puts a large emphasis on publishing and research credit. So, in contrast, the Navy usually specifies that any reporting from a Navy project needs to be reviewed first before it can be published. And this creates a dilemma that needs to be resolved before we can execute a contract. Each organization also has several different programs and departments that are involved with test site projects. And it can be challenging to make sure that all these various entities are updated efficiently. Each department tends to have its own specialized function or expertise, and they're not usually required to know how their part fits into the big picture. And that's where my role as the project manager comes in, to make sure that all these various pieces of the process are being efficient and that they're all working well together. So, how do we manage all of the pieces of this puzzle? I'm going to talk about the techniques that I use to manage projects at the test site. So, managing remote teams is always a challenge, but this was especially compounded with the recent pandemic situation. It became very difficult to hold in person meetings, especially if they involved any type of out of state or international travel. So, this definitely increased our reliance on video conferencing and on virtual meetings. So, how does one make up for the lack of in person connection and interaction while still managing to achieve effective results? Well, I found that actively promoting dialogue with the team does help. I've also found that focusing on outputs over process and remaining very flexible are also both keys for adapting to a remote team environment. Finally, I've found that making an effort to recognize team members for their contributions and hard work is also important with a remote working arrangement. After all, many of us have now come to realize that it can be challenging to stay as visible and as engaged with your team during a full time telework situation. I also found that this was particularly challenging for me because I'm a very social person and I thrive on in person interactions. So, this situation forced me to adapt to a new reality where managing from a distance is the new default. So, although we've been primarily teleworking over the past year, we are still able to perform live drone operations for our naval sponsors. So, here's a recent example from just last year. On October 14th, 2020, our engineer and also pilot, Josh Gauss, flew an M600 drone equipped with an EPA provided Colibri air emission sensor. And he flew it over a column of flame at Naval Support Facility Indian Head. The flame rose from a burn pit on base, which was designed to decontaminate materials that have explosive residue. This operation assisted a research group from Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA's, Office of Research and Development, and the Naval Surface Warfare Center, or NSWC, Indian Head Division, with tests of a new, more environmentally friendly burn unit. Data from this operation will be used to validate the new explosives decontamination unit. And the new propane fueled burn unit is expected to produce much lower emissions compared to the existing wood fired unit. Most of this project work was managed remotely through email and web meetings. However, Josh and I were still able to both attend the burn operation at NSF Indian Head while following all the necessary COVID restrictions. We have a team of 8 staff at the test site, and we plan on organizing one operational team for large fixed wing UAS and then another team for small multi-rotor UAS. But in order to get approval to hire more staff, we must first show that there's a contract in place that proves the demand is there. So often this becomes a chicken or the egg type of dilemma, as we would need the staff already in place to bid for the work. So the team dynamic changes when you have a team that grows from, say, 5 to 8 people to 10 or 12 people. And then this dynamic changes more dramatically when you scale up to 20, 30, 50, 100, etc. Reporting structures and assigned responsibilities need updating when new people are brought on board. Office space is another limitation. When we were just starting out, we had more space than we needed. So we rented out one hangar for extra revenue. But now, since we've become busier, we really can make use of this extra space. So we reclaimed Hangar 3 from our former tenant, and we've already filled the space.